In China, we are dealing with the phenomenon of deserted cities. Millions of apartments are simply empty. There are very few people, and staying in such cities is like a post-apocalyptic movie. The most talked about is Ordos-Kangbashi, located in the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region in China, which stands out as a paradigmatic example of China's urbanization strategy. It was intended to be a city of the future, built to transform an agricultural society into an urban community. The decisions of the Chinese authorities to build metropolises ready to accommodate the rural population supported this direction of development, which reached its official culmination in 2011, when more than half of China's population started living in cities. However, despite achieving this goal, the city of Ordos-Kangbashi still remains one of the largest ghost cities in Asia. Although the number of inhabitants slowly increased and amounted to approximately 200,000, the atmosphere of the city remains intact. However, this is not the only example of uninhabited Chinese cities. Chengdong, a new district in Chengzhou province that occupies a huge space, is also becoming one of the largest ghost towns in China. Although up to 2.5 million people could live there, currently the number of inhabitants is only several dozen thousand. This phenomenon extends to many other places in China, with uninhabited pastiche towns like Tianducheng, a Chinese replica of Paris, being one of the more famous examples. Despite the years since its completion, it remains largely empty and uninhabited. Projects such as Unborn Cities shed light on this issue, making us aware of the scale and complexity of this phenomenon. Focusing on cities such as Ordos-Kangbashi, the Yujiapu Financial District, and the Meixi Lake development, this project explores uninhabited areas, raising questions about the nature and future of urbanization in China. This shows that China is in a terrible situation when it comes to excess housing. Evergrande made a major contribution to the construction of cities. The problems of development giant Evergrande are just the tip of the iceberg in a much larger problem. China's real estate market has been declining for years after a period of oversupply, leaving tens of millions of apartments empty. The Chinese authorities commented on the crisis in Evergrande. The People's Bank of China sharply criticized the company's way of doing business, but said the risks to the financial system were manageable. In recent years, the companies failed to cope with the dynamic changes in the market, as a result of which its operational and financial indicators have deteriorated significantly, leading to the crisis, Zhao Lan, director of the Financial Market Department of China's central bank, said at a press briefing. Even before Evergrande's collapse, attention was drawn to the emptiness of tens of millions of apartments across the country. This problem has only worsened in recent years. It's estimated that there are still around 30 million unsold properties in China, which could house as many as 80 million people, almost the entire population of Germany. In addition, about 100 million properties were probably purchased but remained unoccupied. They could accommodate about 260 million people. Such projects have been attracting attention for years and have even been called China's ghost towns. The real estate sector and related industries constitute a significant part of the Chinese economy, accounting for as much as 30% of GDP. This proportion is much higher than in other key economies, said Mark Williams, chief Asia economist at Capital Economics. Evergrande, a symbol of unsustainable growth, stands as China's most indebted developer, with debts exceeding $300 billion. However, it's not the only developer struggling with problems. Many other developers have revealed their own financial problems, asking for more time to repay or warning of potential financial difficulties. The pandemic caused a temporary lull in activity, but after the country reopened, construction began to come alive again, only to lose momentum again. An era of permanent decline in demand for real estate in China seems to be a fact. The problem also concerns unfinished projects, which, even if in demand, may be delayed due to financial difficulties of developers. However, most major developers in China are in a much better financial situation than Evergrande, which should calm real estate settlement in the short term. Nevertheless, in the long term, consolidation of the development sector seems inevitable. On Monday, January 29th, a Hong Kong court ordered the liquidation of China Evergrande, the most indebted development company in China. The company has debts of up to $333 billion. This liquidation will be a test for Hong Kong courts, which could influence decisions affecting mainland China. Evergrande shares lost over 20% of their value and trading was suspended. Still, the Hang Seng Index gained 0.65%, and shares of other developers such as Country Garden and Sunac China Holdings also rose. In 2017, Evergrande had a market capitalization of HKD 420 billion, but since then the company began to decline, and 2020 proved to be a turning point when Chinese authorities began restrictions on the real estate market. Overbuilding and oversupply. Despite high demand for housing in some areas, some regions in China continue to experience overbuilding. This excess offer-demand leads to a situation in which there are more apartments than actual demand, which generates empty apartments. Real estate speculation. There continues to be considerable speculation in the Chinese real estate market. Many investors, including individuals, companies, and institutions, use real estate as a form of investment, but these properties often remain uninhabited or unrented. This phenomenon contributes to a significant percentage of empty apartments. Economic stresses and slowdown. An economic slowdown may result in reduced demand for real estate. In the face of economic uncertainty, investors may postpone purchases, which causes an increase in the number of empty apartments on the market. Demographic policy. Although China has seen some changes in demographic policy, such as the abolition of the one-child policy, the long-term effects of previous policies may still result in an excess of empty apartments. The older generation who accumulated real estate as a form of savings may still hold these properties unoccupied. Urban planning and regional development. Sometimes urban planning may not be adapted to the actual needs of the population. Construction of new cities and residential areas may exceed actual demand, resulting in empty housing. Changes in resident preferences. Changing resident preferences, especially among younger generations, may influence how properties are used. The increasing popularity of renting compared to owning your own apartment may contribute to an increase in the number of empty apartments. Solving China's empty housing problem requires a comprehensive approach that includes real estate regulation, sustainable urban planning, promotion of rental properties, and support for different housing models to better match supply with actual demand. China, once considered the world's leading economy, is struggling with the problem of empty apartments numbering in the millions. What do you think about it? Leave a comment and subscribe and like. We encourage you to check out our other episodes.